You will never be a chess grandmaster, and likely neither will I. This is probably the truth, because, chess grandmasters, titled players, spend hours, days, weeks, months, years of their lives studying chess. And one of the things that really sets apart titled players from the rest of the field is opening theory. And it's something that probably intimidates a lot of lower rated and beginning chess players because it's often very difficult to get into. It requires time and dedication to learn a chess opening, and not only one, but all its variations and what you can do to refute all of your opponent's kind of counterings. And oftentimes it's not something that everyone's looking for. So in this video, I want to give y'all a couple of tools, especially the lower rated people out there, a couple of tools to counter your opponent's opening and do so without actually knowing any opening theory. So I'm going to show you 3 games in which I didn't really know the moves of the opening that I was playing, but I used kind of logical reasoning and a very solid process of deduction to decide on a move. And then once I played that move eventually helped me to get a winning advantage out of the opening. So I'm going to show you 3 such instances, and it's just a way for me to hopefully help you to feel more confident in playing moves that aren't necessarily the right move as the engine may suggest, but we are all humans. We're all probably below 2,000 rating, and we're probably going to make mistakes. So this video is really a practical video. It's a video meant to help you, just get out of the opening and have a good game. And then whatever you do after that is beyond my control, beyond the control of the opening. And so this is just to safely navigate the opening. Okay? So let's jump right into it here. So we have the first game. I'm playing against Jasper Birdie. And I have the black pieces. We get knight to f3 in this game. And here I play c5. This is not a very... the logic begins right away because I'm not sure what to play against knight to f3. I know that d5 is normally the move here, but I know that after d5, I've faced a lot of games with c4 here, and this is known as the ready gambit, and it's totally playable for both sides. Obviously, it's zeros right now, but I don't really like this with black because if my opponent is prepared, again, we want to play against our opponent's preparation. We don't want to let them get exactly what they want. So if my opponent's prepared with the ready gambit over here, I don't want to get into that. So instead, I play the move c5. And here I'm fighting for the same square that my opponent is fighting for, so it can't be a bad move, right? Now d4 is played, which is a playable move again, especially at the lower levels. This is totally a fine move. I take and take, and here I can just play the move. The computer says I should just play the move d5. My opponent wanted to get the center, but since they traded and put a knight in the center, now I can actually put my own pawn in the center and take some space, prevent the move e4, and I should be much better. However, instead, I go for practical decision here. I decide to play the move knight to c6. And this move is considered an inaccuracy by the computer because, my opponent does exactly what the computer wants, which is to play the move knight c3, and apparently it was better to put my pawn in the center first, prevent the move e4, because now, if I do play d5, a move like e4 is possible because of the knight on c3. However, my idea with knight c6 is if my opponent takes, I will be able to take back with the c-pawn, and in a dream position, I can play the move d5, I can play knight to f6, I can play even e5, g6, bishop to g7, castles, and then I will have all these open lines with my rook on b8, my bishop on g7, and my 2 pawns in the center over here. So that's my ideal position, and I look at that and I think, this can't be bad. And if I see no direct way for my opponent to punish knight to c6, then it can't be that bad a move. It can't be a losing move. So let's play it, right? Okay, so we get knight c3. I'm going to hop forward a couple of moves. I play knight to f6. We get e3 here. I play g6, and now I play bishop to g7. And finally, we get this move knight takes c6. And of course, I take back with the c-pawn here. And you can see that despite what initially was considered an inaccurate move out of the opening by the computer, I actually have gained an advantage because of my move knight to c6. And now it's minus 0.4, excuse me. So this is an example of how my practical play in the opening, even though it wasn't the exact move, has helped me to get an advantage. And if we scroll through the game a little bit, we see that I get exactly the position I was talking about. My king is super safe here behind the pawns. Bishop is strong on this diagonal. My rook is ready to get active here, and now I play the move. After I move the rook out, I play the move d5, and shortly I play the move e5, and I play the move e4. And look at this position. This is the dream position out of the opening. And look at this. I have connected pawns in the center. I'm blunting the force of this bishop completely. And a couple of moves later, I play h5, once again restricting my opponent's mobility on their light squares. And f3 is now actually a terrible mistake, because after rook to e8 and a trade on e4, this pawn on e3 is always going to be a weakness. And I'm just going to scroll through the game here. My opponent plays bishop here. It's a great move. Rook g4. I'm going to scroll through the moves here. I win a pawn on b2 here. And I'm actually much, much better. Now, this game actually, I believe, got a little bit out of hand here, because after a couple of more moves, I play rook to a4, and after queen to g3 here, I actually made a bit of a blunder here, and my opponent found a really brilliant move. I play rook takes a2, and my opponent here sacrifices the bishop with bishop takes g6, and after queen takes, I'm actually losing the bishop here on e6. So I end up losing 2 pawns in front of my king. Thankfully, I was able to pick up a couple of pawns here earlier in the game, so the material is actually equal, but my king's safety is quite open here, and it's going to cost me the game. And my opponent, actually makes a little bit of inaccuracy in terms of the way he converts, and actually I end up in low time being able to draw the game here. I missed that. I played the move after king here. I had the opportunity to take the rook here, but I had only 16 seconds on the clock, and I panicked. I didn't see the move, and I played queen to g5, and actually shortly my opponent sacrificed the rook and then was up 2 pawns, but ended up making a draw. So I didn't lose the game. So that's one example of a game, but the point remains. All of the craziness that ensued later in the game is not as important as what happened at the beginning, which is I played this move knight to c6. Let's go back to the beginning here. I played this move knight to c6. I put a wrinkle in the position. I have a vision, and I make that vision come to be, even though it's not accurate, as said by the computer. I make this b takes c6, and then I play d5, and I get a good position, and I get a winning advantage. All right, so let's move to the second game here. Sorry, that's a spoiler. It shouldn't be a spoiler. Let me make sure this one isn't a spoiler either. Yeah, that one isn't. Okay, good. It's not really a spoiler. It's just the middle of the game. So this game, I put it on the game review here so that you could see that neither my opponent nor I played very accurately in any of these games here. 77 isn't terrible, but it's nothing special. In this game, we get a King's Gambit. Which is with this move f4 on move 2. And it's supposed to be better for black after takes and either knight c6 or maybe bishop c4. And the meta here is to play a move like g5. And this is supposed to be better for black. But there's a lot of theory here with d4. Lot of stuff where white gets the entire center, a lot of quick development, and my pawn on f7 becomes quite a target. So instead of this, I didn't want to get it again. I don't want to get into my opponent's preparation, right? So I play this move, knight to c6. Now it's considered a book move because you could play like probably 3 or 4 moves here, which are book moves, but it's not the best move. Now my opponent has an advantage, and they play the move knight to f3. Now again, I don't want to take and get into the situation where I have to face d4, so I play d6. Again, reinforcing my center. And then after bishop c4, I blunt the force of the bishop on f7 by playing bishop to e6, voluntarily doubling my pawns in the center. And actually, shortly later, I double the pawns right over here as well. I play the move d takes e5 here. I have doubled e pawns, and this is the position that I opt for. Actually, here I missed a tactic here with queen to h4, and after king to f1, I'm supposed to now recapture here because now I've moved the king, obviously. And if g3, this is a famous tactic. If g3, then queen here is going to be able to win the rook. But nevertheless, I missed that, and I play d takes e5, and now my opponent actually can play queen h5 check. And again, if I play this, then I'm going to be losing the pawn on e5 with the rook over here. So I would have to play a move like knight f6, and then actually e6 would be falling. So I would actually have to play something like this, and then I would be losing here. So my opponent also makes a couple of errors here, but they don't find the move queen h5. What's important here is this position is plus 1.4 for white, right? It is. It's a better position for white, but I've taken my opponent out of a position where they're comfortable. So now not only am I uncomfortable because it's a position that I'm not familiar with, it's also uncomfortable for my opponent. So when we're both uncomfortable, it's a game. Because we don't have the evaluation, it's a game. Because we're not grandmasters. It's gonna be fun either way. And here my opponent castles and misses queen h5. So now I play knight to f6, preventing the queen to coming here. And then a couple of moves later, I play queen d7. Again, it was better for me to give a check and castle short here, but I have a different plan. I want to make as many imbalances in the position. So I play queen d7. And now I castle long, and after bishop to e3, I play king b1. Now my plan is I opened up this file, right? And I have these doubled pawns in the center, which are keeping the center closed. The knight has no entry points here, and I'm shortly going to play h6 and prevent the knight from getting there on b5. And then I'm just going to put my knight here on b5, and I'm going to attack the white king. It's a simple plan. So we get a4. I play h6, preventing the knight, as I said. And then now I play bishop to e7. The rook goes up, and I play h5, sorry. And then a couple of moves later, you can see my advantage it's complete. It's -4 now. So you can see when you make decisions that are practical, when you make decisions that are sound in terms of the logic that you've thought them out with, you're going to be fine in the opening. And after this, I actually went on to win this game very easily, even though I didn't do it quite accurately. I'll just roll through the moves here, but cleaned up, picked up a pawn or two, traded some rooks, and then pushed the pawn slowly. And then my opponent ended up sacrificing the knight, and then I ended up cleaning up the position here anyway. So this was a game, and this again exemplifies when out of the opening, you don't want to play into your opponent's hands. If I play this, I know my opponent's prepared with at least 3 different ideas here, So I don't want to go into that. So, instead I choose to play something subpar, but something that'll get me a game, and I end up winning. Now, let's go to the third game here. Let's keep this pretty brief here. I don't want to take too much of your time. But, again, we have the black pieces, 3 games with the black pieces here, but again, this is a good example because with the black pieces, you have a lot less jurisdiction on which opening you want to play because you don't play the first move. And so you have to always be reacting to what your opponent is doing. In this game, my opponent is 1591 and plays e4 again, and I'm playing the Caro-Kann. And we get a trade in the center, and d4. This is pretty normal so far. I'll keep going until we get to the change in the position. Bishop to b5 here, e6 is normal, takes, and now I take back. So you can see that I've allowed a very simple capture here, and my pawn on c6 is now ready to make a break here. But this is like why Caro-Kann is such a good opening, is because it's very easy to understand the plans of it. You want to get your pieces out, and you want to castle, and then you want to break with c5, and then you want to play on the open lines here, on these 2 lines, and your king side's always solid. I mean, at least in this version of the Caro-Kann, that's a very simple plan for beginning and intermediate players. So I play knight to f6, even though it's not the best move. I don't know what is, but I'm just sticking to my simple plan, which is always a good idea. So now the knight gets into e5, and here is the moment where I need to make a decision, right? So I could try to play c5 if I wanted, but then the knight does jump in. It's not necessarily a good move, but c5 here does open up the diagonal towards my king when I'm still 2 moves away from castling. So I ruled out the move c5. Next, I considered the move queen to c7 here, which looks like a decent move because it puts pressure on the knight and defends the pawn, prepares c5, and moves the queen off the starting square so that when I play bishop d6 and castle, my rooks are going to be connected. That seems like a pretty good idea. However, I looked at this move bishop to f4, and I see that maybe if I just play, let's say I play bishop to e7 instead of bishop to d6 here, which would be a better move. Now knight g6 would be a pretty a haymaker for me because my queen's under attack, the knight defends the bishop, and my rook gets hit here. So after a move like queen b6, the knight would be able to capture here on h8, and I would be losing the rook. So not necessarily a bad idea, queen c7, because I could always play bishop d6 here, but instead I select the most risk-free option as I see it, and that's the move rook to c8. Again, this is not a book move, it's not the best move, it's a good move, and that's why it's a practical move, and that's why it's your friend. So after now the bishop moves, I move the bishop to block the pin, and I castle. Queen goes out to pressure the pawn, and now I take a moment again to consider, is this pawn really under attack? You know, let's say I play a move like king to h8. Can my opponent really capture this pawn? You can't take with the queen, obviously, because I'm going to take it back, and then that would be losing for you. But if you take with the knight here, attacking the queen and the bishop, it looks like a good move. But actually, after queen d7, the knight is pinned to the queen here, which is undefended. And if the knight moves, let's say if the knight takes the bishop, I will take your queen, and I'll be up a queen. And if you move the queen, let's say to b3 or something, I'll be able to take the knight, obviously. And I have a double attack on the knight, so you're actually going to be losing the knight here. So I see that you can't play the move knight to take c6. So instead, I play a waiting move. I hit the bishop here with h6. Now, bishop takes f6, and I trade on f6, and then queen takes on a7, which is a good move. But now, again, remember, I'm sticking to my plan. Your queen's out of play, your knight's in the center, supported only by a single pawn, and my weak pawn on c6 is about to become my asset with c5. Again, inaccuracy doesn't matter. This is the best move in the position if you strip away all the finesses. The idea of the position, I'd say for anyone below like 1300, this is the best move in the position because c5, firstly, you can't take with the queen. You're going to lose. Mouse slip, because you're going to lose it. Secondly, you can't take with the pawn because you'll lose the knight. And third, my plan is to take over here and get you to have an isolated pawn. So let's say you play a move, let's say you play queen here. I want to take, and now you have an isolated pawn over here that I can target. With moves like queen b6, I'm going to be targeting that pawn. It's going to be a liability all throughout the game. I play c5. We get knight to g4. So instantly, as soon as I challenge the center, we get a mistake out of your opponent. And this is the great beauty of playing practical moves, is that they complicate the game in your favor. They make your opponent think that you are better, and especially if you play them confidently, if you play them quickly, and if you really understand the point behind your practical moves, then you're going to see the results. Because after knight to g4, now I can just trade on g4 with my bishop, double the pawns, and I take on d4, and after they take back, now my rook on c8 becomes alive because it slides up to c2. And now, not only am I targeting b2 and maybe a2 in the future, I also got eyes over here on the king side. Now the knight comes out, and I'm immediately able to pick up a pawn. Now we're equalized in terms of material, and I'm ready to target some of these other weaknesses. Now the rook comes out to defend the pawn, and I play the move queen to a8. Here I just want to trade queens, because if the queen moves, the queen could go to c4. But this is, I'm just activating my queen along this diagonal, and I'm going to maybe play queen a5 and bring my other rook here, or maybe even play rook to c8. So, in this position, my opponent trades queens and moves the knight back, and now is forced to lose another pawn. Now I'm up a pawn. We trade rooks. The knight comes out. I shuffle a little bit. I'm going to scroll through the moves here. We shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And eventually, we're going to... I trade the bishops, and I'm just up a pawn in this endgame. My opponent does defend this pawn on d4 very well, but what it costs him is all of this space on the queen side here. Or the king side, sorry, I forgot I'm playing black. Now look, my pawn is just 2 squares away from promoting, and my other pawn's ready to help, and my king is right on the way over here. So I drop back to defend my position. I push my pawn to h5, rook to h7, king goes back, king goes here, and then finally I block with the rook and play king d6. And after now, I'm just going to scroll through the moves here. It just takes a little bit of time to find the logistics and find the right setup here. But I finally play the move h3, takes, and I play here. Again, a little bit of load time, but I'm finally up a pawn. My opponent is never going to be able to move up to escort this pawn because they have to keep protecting this one, and this pawn is going to queen. So I end up winning the game here. But let's go back and take a look at the opening. Remember, it's a pretty normal opening. I highly recommend the Caro-Kann for beginners. If you're interested, do let me know, and I'll make a small video on the main ideas of the Caro-Kann. I'm not any opening theory expert, but I can familiarize you with the main ideas here. And then, we played a couple of normal moves, and then I get the C pawn, which I know is a long-term asset to poke at this d4 pawn structure. Now, I develop my pawns, I play rook to c8, and then I castle, and then a couple of moves later, I play this move h6, which gives my opponent, gives me the bishop pair after my opponent decides to take. And then after this pawn is lost on a7, I'm still better, even though I'm down a pawn here because I have this move c5, and then my opponent is forced to make the mistake with knight g4. We trade, and then I get the infiltration, and from there, it's a piece of cake. So, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, this is a lesson in practical play for chess, and I hope it helps you in your openings. It's also going to help in the middle and the end game, but especially in the opening, I think it's a great way to help you get out of opening traps, by playing something that your opponent doesn't predict, and also playing something that is maybe not the best move, but also something that is very concrete, something that's practical, and something that's going to get you a game. So with that, I hope you all have a great New Year celebration with friends, family, whatever, and I hope to see you tomorrow or in my next stream. So bye-bye.